Filip Forsberg hat trick, Yakov Trenin trade. Let's jump in.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to start out this Friday episode with a shout out to our Locked On Pred heads, our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us Monday through Friday. Want to thank you for your support and tell you we love that we get to spend a part of your day talking Preds hockey with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at Penalty Box Radio. I usually have a partner in crime, Nick Morgan, but Nick is off today. So much that we need to jump in and talk about on today's episode. A slightly different looking Predators roster took the ice last night against the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to recap that game, talk about Filip Forsberg's hat trick and the performance of that top line. And then we need to talk about the big moves Barry Trotz made yesterday. First, though, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So much that we need to get to on today's episode. It's hard to know where to start, but we're going to start with last night's game against the Buffalo Sabres, a game in which Filip Forsberg earned his 9th career hat trick, y'all. The Predators defeated the Sabres 4-2. And of course, you know, here at Locked On Predators, we always like to kick off our game recaps, sharing one word to describe the game. My one word is actually an idiom. I think it's an idiom. I don't think it's a metaphor. Pretty sure it's an idiom, but I'm going to use the phrase, the cream always rises, as my one word to describe last night's game. Now, I grew up in rural Northwestern Pennsylvania. We had a ton of dairy farmers around. And of course, you know, anytime you milk a cow, that fresh milk, if you put it in the refrigerator or let it sit for a little bit, it's going to separate. The cream, which is essentially the fat, is going to rise to the top of that jar. Perhaps a more urban understanding would be if you pour cream in your coffee and you let it sit, the cream is going to rise to the top of the coffee. In essence, what that means is that the good part always separates itself. The cream always rises to the top. And that is 100% what we saw last night with Filip Forsberg and that top line. Nashville had a lot that they needed to prove in the game against the Buffalo Sabres after losing in overtime to the Montreal Canadiens, a game in which the Predators did not perform up to the level they had in their 8-game win streak. This also was a game where I would say the Predators did not perform up to the level that they had been, but they did enough to get a 4-2 win. And let me tell you something, that top line was critical to the win. Kind of started out as a really good game, hit a bit of a lull, and then Filip Forsberg and that top line really separated themselves from the opposition. Just like it took, you know, it takes cream a little bit of time to separate. It did take the Predators a little bit of time to separate. This was a 1-goal game for far too long against the Buffalo Sabres, but in the third period, they did pull away. In case you did not catch the game, let's do a real quick 30-second recap. Predators got on the board first with a power play goal, my friends, from Filip Forsberg less than 4 minutes into the game. New Buffalo Sabre Bowen Byram wanted redemption after he was embarrassed by Tommy Novak playing for the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday. He scored just 30 seconds after Filip Forsberg's power play goal to tie the game back up. Nashville took the lead on another power play goal. That's right. Predators scored 2 out of 3 power play goals. This was a gorgeous power play pass from Tommy Novak to Mark Jankowski, who found Luke Evangelista headed straight to the net, made it a 2-1 game through the first period. Second period, Predators did not pull away. They weren't able to kind of separate themselves, and it remained a 2-1 game through 2 periods. The third period kicked off, and it was the top line show. Filip Forsberg scored his second goal less than 2 minutes into the third period off of an absolutely incredible pass from Gus Nyquist. 5 minutes later, he scored his hat trick goal with a wraparound shot. Owen Power did get one back for the Sabres off of a shot from the slot, but the Predators held on to win 4-2. This was, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Filip Forsberg's ninth hat trick of his career. He is on a 7-game point streak. He has 7 goals and 12 points in those 7 games. And you could tell from the very start of this game that Filip Forsberg was feeling his self on the ice. I was sitting next to Robbie Stanley, and after that first Filip Forsberg goal, Robbie Stanley said, "Nah, Forsberg hat trick." And he called it. And it was so evident from the start that Filip Forsberg really was on his game and really wanted to make some things happen from the moment the puck dropped through the end of this game. And what is so interesting, if you haven't maybe been following along with some of the tweets about the Predators practices, is that Filip Forsberg has not practiced in a while, y'all. Barry Trotz said that that's due to the fact that he has a cut that just isn't healing right. And so they're trying to kind of get that healed up, which means a little bit less wear and tear on him in practices. You would think that that would really kind of make Filip Forsberg a little bit rusty. He's not taken line rushes with Nyquist and O'Reilly. He has not been out, shooting shots with the team, anything like that. Last night we saw that did not make Forsberg rusty. It made him hungry. And I'm telling you, Forsberg had one of the best games with 3 incredible goals. It wasn't just the quantity. It wasn't just 3 goals. It was the absolute filth of the goals that Forsberg scored last night. Just incredible. We got to talk with some of the players after the game, of course, about Forsberg's performance. And Andrew Brunette had some interesting comments about Filip Forsberg as well. I want to share those with you here.
It's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, it looks like he's having a lot of fun too. Like that whole line in general. The past couple of games, some of the passing plays that you see from them. I've never seen that kind of level of hockey. So to just kind of watch and learn from them, and they're having a huge impact on this win streak. So they've been playing some great hockey, and obviously Phil has been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he's the whole package, and when he gets going like that, when he's kind of playing a power forward game instead of a complete skill game, he puts the power forward and then the skill comes behind it, and that's a deadly combination. Yeah, that top line was really on it right from the start. I thought their line and Mac's line kind of were going. You can see the mojo they were creating, and you knew Phil he's probably going to have a night. And Gus and Factor, I thought really the whole game, but even the start, they're pretty sharp.
I love what we're seeing from Nashville's top line, not just recently, but over the course of the season, especially with where the Nashville Predators are. You heard from Luke Evangelista talking about, I have not seen this level of hockey. When you have a young team that is going through kind of a reset rebuild, you've got some of these young players that are coming in and becoming regulars like Evangelista, like Novak, Cody Glass kind of getting back into a regular role. To see plays executed at the level that Filip Forsberg, Gus Nyquist, and Ryan O'Reilly are executing right now is nothing but beneficial to this team. I also want to highlight what Andrew Brunette had to say about Filip Forsberg, because I think it's so important to talk about. He talked about the fact that Forsberg really played a power forward game, and then his skill set was kind of the icing on that performance. When you think of Filip Forsberg, I think we all think of things like his incredible puck handling skills, his shooting. He has such a deceptive release. But the thing that is easy to overlook, even when you just look at Filip Forsberg, is that this is a guy who is deceptively strong. This is a hardy Swede, my friends. And that's exactly what Filip Forsberg kind of leaned into last night into this game, and then topped off that kind of play with that skill, with that high level of execution, with that deceptive release, with the puck handling skills, with kind of his sneaky playmaking. And I think it's interesting because we don't tend to think of Filip Forsberg as a power forward. We tend to think of him as a skilled player. And this is a guy who is the total package. And we saw that last night with his performance and, of course, that ninth hat trick. Gus Nyquist, want to give a shout out to him. He has 10 points in his last 5 games, 15 points since the Predators kicked off their 10-game point streak. He has a career high in assists so far this season. We asked Andrew Brunette about what he's seeing from Gus Nyquist, and he just said, again, the term he often uses, he's a really cerebral player. Like, this is a player who thinks the game at a high level, who sees the ice well, does so many things really well, and he plays with top guys, and he makes top guys better. What you're seeing from Gus Nyquist right now is just excellent hockey. Those assists have been so important for the Predators in this stretch run right now. And of course, want to give a shout out to Ryan O'Reilly, 3 goals, 7 points in his last 5 games, 4 goals and 10 points in these last 10 games. So this top line really is playing excellent hockey. Again, I know there was a little period of time where we maybe weren't seeing quite as much from them. Now the seesaw has tipped a little bit, where we were relying on depth scoring for a stretch. Now we're back to seeing so much happening with the top line, but we do need to be watching out for that depth scoring as the Predators head out on the road for some road games coming up. We're going to talk about those later in this episode. Before we wrap up last night's game recap, want to give a shout out to Novak, Jankowski, and Evangelista with their power play goal in the first period. Buffalo was really giving Nashville trouble as they were trying to enter the zone. Novak took the puck in, got it to Jankowski. Luke Evangelista just absolutely streaking to the net. Friends, good things happen when you go to the net. And Mark Jankowski just made an incredible pass, put it right on the tape for Evangelista to score that second goal for the Nashville Predators. Again, Predators 2 for 3 on the power play, which is really important. That's going to be something that's going to matter as the Predators continue to kind of pursue an opportunity to get into the postseason. There was, however, one thing missing in last night's game, and that, my friends, was Yakov Trenin, who was traded yesterday by Barry Trotz. Coming up, we're going to look at that Trenin trade and talk about the other moves that Trotz made yesterday. We still have a lot of opportunity for more moves today. We're going to talk about what could happen in the rest of this time left before the trade deadline. But before we do that, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Factor. If you're like me, one of your New Year's resolutions may have been trying to eat healthier, but friends, let's be honest, it's March and you may be feeling overwhelmed or uninspired. Well, let me introduce you to a great solution to that in Factor meals. Factor makes delicious, ready-to-eat meals that are ready to go in just 2 minutes. Their fresh, never frozen meals are chef-crafted and dietitian approved. They have over 35 different options to choose from, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor also has more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day. Discover a wide variety of options for the entire day, including smoothies, pancakes, midday snacks. And with Factor, there is no prep, no mess, no cleanup. Factor meals are ready to heat and eat. Factor is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, premium options with no cooking required. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use our code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off right now. Again, check that out at factormeals.com and use our code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. So let's talk about some moves that Barry Trotz made yesterday ahead of this afternoon's trade deadline. Right around lunchtime, news broke that the Nashville Predators had acquired Anthony Beauvillier from Chicago in exchange for a 2024 fifth-round pick. Now, this move is what I would call a low-cost, let's see what happens from it move by Barry Trotz, who has a history with Beauvillier. So quick little highlight of him. He is 26 years old, so a little bit of a younger player. First round pick in 2015 for the New York Islanders, 28th overall pick. He did play several seasons under Islanders then head coach Barry Trotz, was traded from the Islanders to Vancouver in the Bo Horvat deal, and then was traded from Vancouver to Chicago on November 28th for a 2024 conditional fifth round pick. Between his time in Vancouver and Chicago this season, he's played 45 games, only has 4 goals and 14 points. So I wouldn't say that this has been a great season for Anthony Beauvillier, but Barry Trotz sees some potential there. If you look back at his career statistics, his best season came in 2017, 2018. He did have a 21 goal season then. His best point season was 2019, 2020, 39 points, 18 goals. He's had 3 18-goal seasons. So he has flirted with being a 20-goal scorer several times. Averages about 14 minutes on ice so far this season. He is on his last year of a 3-year deal with a 4.15 AAV. So he's going to be a UFA at the end of this season. So really, this is kind of, again, a rental. Let's see what happens kind of move. I think there's a couple reasons why Barry Trotz made this move. First of all, you're getting a very different player to kind of toss into the Predators lineup. Beauvillier is not a huge guy. He's 5'11", listed at 180 pounds, but here is what he is. He is a shooter. And the Nashville Predators could use a shooter. When you're looking at players like Luke Evangelista, looking at a player like Tommy Novak, even Cody Glass, those guys tend to be playmakers, pass-first guys. You have got to get somebody who is going to shoot the puck, and Beauvillier is a shooter. He also is a little bit faster. So I think you're adding somebody who is going to shoot the puck. You're also adding an element of speed to the lineup. I also think it's huge that this deal happened because Barry Trotz has a history with Beauvillier. I think Trotz has a pretty good idea of what his ceiling was, perhaps what his ceiling is in the right situation. So this really is a very low risk move. This is probably a rental player. I think it's very helpful for the Predators because you are adding speed. You are adding somebody who is a shooter, and whether Beauvillier stays with the Nashville Predators or not, it's going to show you what adding a piece who has speed and who is a shoot first kind of person will do for this lineup. Whether that ends up being Beauvillier long-term or not, it gives you an idea of what changing that dynamic does for this Nashville Predators lineup. Do I think this is a move, a trade, a deal that's going to move the needle on what Nashville does through the rest of the season and potentially into the postseason? I don't necessarily think that, but I do think that it's an interesting move, big picture for the Predators. Do they need to just be looking for more speed and a shooter finisher guy, whether it's Beauvillier or not? That's what this move's going to tell the Nashville Predators down the stretch. Nashville also claimed Jarrett Anderson Dolan off waivers from the LA Kings. This is a 24-year-old center, 2017 second-round pick for the Kings. He has played 126 NHL games, 15 goals, 28 points, averages, a little under 12 minutes of time on ice. Of course, anytime there is a prospect or a young player who is kind of in the mix with Nashville, the first person y'all should go to is Eric D. Predators prospects. You need to be following him on social media and at Penalty Box Radio because he spends so much time really watching these younger players, these players that are just coming into the league. And Eric's assessment of this move is that this could be a bottom 6 option for Nashville or maybe a top line option for Milwaukee. So he's kind of in that gray area where he could become a depth piece for the Predators if things go well, if he clicks with the system. He may end up being a top line guy in Milwaukee. Eric describes him as a decent skater, a responsible player. He has 4 points in 30 games so far this year. So this is a player to keep an eye on. Eric, I think, was intrigued by this pickup by Barry Trotz. So let's keep an eye on that move. And then we're finally at the big move of the day yesterday for the Nashville Predators. The Nashville Predators traded Yakov Trenin and the rights to prospect Graham Sword to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for 21-year-old defenseman Jeremy Hansel and a 2025 third-round draft pick. So Yakov Trenin, you remember, one of the handful of UFAs that Barry Trotz has to make some decisions on. So why did this happen? Why was Yakov Trenin traded? Well, when Beauvillier was acquired, really thought that there is going to be a counter move that was going to be made. You're swapping out two very different styles of players. Yakov Trenin, very physical player. You're kind of exchanging that role with Beauvillier, who is more of a speed and shooter player. So I think the Predators are looking to enhance depth scoring, and they had to make a counter move. Yakov Trenin was going to be the guy who didn't stay with the Predators. You also have to wonder how talks were going between Trenin and the Nashville Predators. Were they even close on a deal? Don't know. Predators will face Colorado with Yakov Trenin March 30th. That's going to be an away game. So they will get a chance to see Trenin with Colorado. And I believe Colorado plays tonight. So keep your eye on that game. Trenin very well could make his debut with them tonight. Along with Trenin, there's another part of this deal that I think we do need to be careful not to overlook. Nashville sent 2022 fifth-round pick Graham Sword to the Avalanche. Sword is an unsigned player. He's currently the captain of the Wenatchee Wild. He is second among all defenders in scoring. He's got 15 goals, 73 points in 58 games. Now, Colorado has to sign him. He does not have an ELC yet. So Colorado has until June to decide if they want to sign him, or Sword would become a free agent. In exchange, the Predators got Jeremy Hansel. He is a defender playing for the WHL Seattle Thunderbirds. The Thunderbirds have had a ton of postseason success and experience recently. He's 6'1". He's picked in the 6th round of the 2023 draft. He just signed an ELC with the Colorado Avalanche right before being traded. He's 9th in the WHL defenders in scoring. And according to Eric, he kind of feels like maybe his playmaking or play killing skills may be a step up over Graham Sword. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Hansel. He's going to likely start in Milwaukee next season. But this is somebody that Eric says could eventually crack a depth position in Nashville one day. I think it's a very interesting day yesterday. I think had the Trenin move happened first, the expectation would have been, hey, Trotz is making room to call up somebody from Milwaukee to give somebody else a chance. We have not seen a lot of Admirals so far this season. Maybe Tomasino, maybe Parsonen get, a call back up. I really think we would have said Zachary Leroux, but because Beauvillier was the first move of the day, you kind of knew that there was going to be a counter move. So what is left for Barry Trotz to do? Today is it. This afternoon, the trade deadline is over. What is Barry Trotz likely to do this afternoon? There's a couple things that he absolutely has to deal with. We're going to talk about what those are coming up here in just a moment. First, I want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. No matter how the game went last night, anytime you take the ice, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. You can find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked-on. Offer valid through March 31st. Again, go to Indeed.com/locked-on to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Coming up on Monday's episode of Locked On Predators podcast, we will have recaps of all of the weekend action. There will be plenty of that. And we're going to kick off the week with our Monday plus minus segment. Predators are headed out on the road. We're going to make sure that you are ready for all the action next week as they travel and try to collect more points. But we still have the trade deadline looming ahead of us this afternoon. What is left for Barry Trotz to do today? What are we watching for? Well, I think the first thing we have to talk about is Alexandre Carrier. Reports this morning indicate that he is likely to finish the season with Nashville, but without a contract extension. That is the kind of whisper around the league as of this morning. Now, we all know things change fast. By the time this episode is published, who even knows? We will keep you updated, of course. But Alexandre Carrier, this is an interesting one. Barry Trotz really likes Carrier. I think he really wants to keep him here. You have to also weigh the fact that Carrier and Jeremy Lauzon have really become a quality defensive pairing for the Nashville Predators. The two of them have great chemistry together. You see both of them growing in their game, especially kind of the offensive side as they play together, but not sacrificing responsible defensive play. But when you keep Alexandre Carrier here, are you delaying the development of a player like Spencer Stastny, who is still down in Milwaukee? I don't think there's any secret that the Predators want to get Stastny up here in Nashville, get him that NHL experience. They just haven't had an opportunity to. It's a blessing that the Predators have not had a lot of injuries, but it also has not opened doors for opportunity to get Stastny up here. The other one I think you have to weigh in on, I think the Predators want to get a longer look at Mark Del Gaizo as well. And I think he deserves another look here in Nashville. So keeping Carrier here may delay the opportunity for Stastny and perhaps Del Gaizo to get more NHL minutes, to get Barry Trotz's eyes on them again. So this is a little bit of a tough one. If the Predators opt not to trade or move Alexandre Carrier, but don't sign him to a contract, you are essentially going to lose a valuable UFA for nothing. And really, when you look at who is out there right now, especially for a right shot defenseman, Carrier is at the top of the list of those who are available. So if there are teams looking for that, the Predators could get something for him. But if they want to keep him here, you run the risk of losing him for nothing. So you really have to balance out, what is Barry Trotz ultimately going to do with Carrier? Is it worth trying to get another draft pick to lose Carrier and to kind of change up the chemistry on the defensive end of things? Is it worth it to move Carrier and get Stastny up here, even though the Predators are on a great run right now? Got a lot you have to weigh out with that. So keep an eye on Alexandre Carrier today. The other thing Barry Trotz has mentioned is that he is open to being a part of a deal where the Predators use that last spot to retain salary. So Nashville could use that spot as a part of maybe a three-way deal to gather some more draft capital. So keep an eye on that. Barry Trotz has said he's kind of going to wait till the last minute to see what the best offer is that he can get. As the trade deadline looms closer, teams are going to get more desperate. Barry Trotz could get more for giving up that extra salary retention spot right now. So keep an eye on that just sort of business off ice deal. The other player you need to keep your ear out for today is Kevin Lankinen. I think teams, as the deadline looms closer today, are going to realize, hey, you know what? We don't have what we need in goal for a deep run. And I'm thinking of a team like the Edmonton Oilers, who lost last night and did not have great goaltending. You know, they do have Stuart Skinner. Maybe they feel confident kind of riding him through the playoffs. But there are some teams who need to bolster their goaltending duo. Kevin Lankinen is a guy to do it, but you have to look past the stats to understand that. He's only started 17 games. He's playing behind UC Saros, who likes a hefty workload, but Lankinen is ready for more. Again, look past the stats. He only has an .892 save percentage, but he also has started against some of the top teams in the league and has kept the Nashville Predators in those games. Lankinen is ready to play more. Lankinen is ready to compete for a starting job on a team. Don't know what's going to happen. He, again, another UFA. Is Barry Trotz going to be okay letting Lankinen walk for nothing? I do think you're going to hear some murmurs about Lankinen as this day goes on. Let's see where things end up, by the deadline this afternoon. A couple other UFAs, keep your ear out for: Mark Jankowski, Kiefer Sherwood, Dennis Garionov. Is Barry Trotz going to do anything with these guys? Or are these guys just going to finish out the season? I don't know that there's going to be a ton of interest in them. So these may be players who just kind of ride out the season. And then at the end of the year, Trotz will decide what he wants to do with them as far as depth pieces. So still plenty that can happen with the Nashville Predators today. Of course, stay locked in here with Locked On Predators. If there's any more moves, we'll jump in and have a quick podcast to get you updated on that. This weekend, a lot of on-ice action. Predators are playing back-to-back afternoon games. They're taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets tomorrow. It is an 11:30 a.m. puck drop, so nice and early. Columbus Blue Jackets are a little bit of a surprising team. They've scored 18 goals in their last 4 games against Chicago, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Edmonton. They've beat Vegas and they beat Edmonton 4-2. Nashville has not played their best hockey against Montreal and Buffalo, so they are going to need to elevate their game. And they're just going to need to perform better because this Columbus Blue Jackets team is shocking some good teams. It could also be tricky if you've got these roster changes because, this is not the exact same roster that got the Predators those 8-game wins in a row. On Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time, they're going to face off against Central Division rival Minnesota Wild. This is a big game. Predators currently have 75 points. Minnesota has 66 points. They have a game in hand. They are playing Colorado tonight. It's going to be the second game of a back-to-back for Minnesota, who won last night 5-2 over Arizona. So let's see what Minnesota does tonight against Colorado. In these 2 games, what do you need to be watching for? First of all, want to have the top line playing like they did against Buffalo, but you have to have depth scoring in these 2 games. In Minnesota, the win over Minnesota, the Predators had goals from Trenin, McDonough, Cole Smith, along with the top line, and Roman Josi goals. Got to get that depth scoring going again. Haven't seen that in these last 2 games against Montreal and Buffalo. You also need to get back to that high level of play. The Predators have got to get back to where they were playing in that 8-game win streak. Andrew Brunette said, look, it's really hard to maintain that high level of play. It is even harder to get back to it. So the Predators are going to have to dig in and really get back to fast game, ending plays quickly in the defensive zone, and really getting that depth scoring. The other thing is we're likely to see Anthony Beauvillier in the lineup. Let's see if we can get some quick chemistry going with him as well. So those are 3 things to keep an eye on this weekend as the Nashville Predators have back-to-back games. Whatever happens, that we're going to cover it all here at Locked On Predators. We'll have, of course, your game recaps on Monday along with our plus minus. Whatever happens today at the trade deadline, we'll be sure to keep you updated here. That is going to do it today for the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Hope you guys have a great weekend. We look forward to seeing you back here on Monday.